Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're diving into something I think, probably everyone who's ever tried to learn English has struggled with: vocabulary. You know that feeling, right? You learn a word, maybe you even think you've got it, but then when you really need it, in a conversation or maybe trying to write something, it's just gone.
Mm-hmm.
Like it just evaporated. That, ugh, I know this word, why can't I remember it now feeling.
Oh, absolutely familiar. And the sources we've been digging into for this dive, they really get to the heart of that frustration. They point out that the biggest barrier isn't usually effort, interestingly enough, but the method.
Right.
We often try to acquire vocabulary in ways that fundamentally don't align with how our brain actually learns and remembers things.
Yeah, it's like our brains have these built-in filters. The sources say the brain tends to reject or, just forget information that's presented in a way that's boring or maybe isn't used, that's disconnected from anything else, or that's just kind of repetitive without any real meaning attached. So just staring at long lists like Apple Translation, that doesn't really create those necessary hooks for memory, does it?
No, precisely. That kind of approach, it leads to what the sources term passive vocabulary.
Okay, passive.
Yeah. You can recognize the word when you read or hear it. Like, okay, yeah, I've seen meticulous before. I sort of know what that means. But you can't access or use that word actively and confidently when you're speaking or writing yourself. It just stays stuck on the passive side.
Right. You know it exists, but you can't grab it when you need it. And that leads to another really fascinating insight from the sources. You don't actually need some huge, 10,000 word vocabulary right away.
No, not at all.
They argue you can become incredibly fluent and communicative by truly mastering a core set of maybe 2,000 to 3,000 words. But the key is mastering them deeply and relatively quickly.
Focusing on depth over breadth, especially early on, that's really key. It's about making those core words, live in your mouth, not just sit in a dusty notebook or some flashcard pile somewhere.
Yeah. Live in your mouth. I like that. Okay, so the mission for this deep dive then is to unpack how we bridge that gap. How do we turn passive recognition into active usage? How do we make vocabulary sticky, as the sources describe it? What are the proven techniques they highlight for building that usable vocabulary fast?
Well, that concept of sticky words is a great place to start, actually. Think about words that you never forget, like your own name, your family members' names, maybe words tied to really strong memories or emotions.
Sure.
Those words stick because they're connected to your life, right? Your feelings, your story.
Right. They have depth beyond just a simple definition. They're anchored to something real inside your brain. So if the brain forgets boring, unused, disconnected words, well, the challenge is to give new words those anchors, to make them sticky. And the source material really points to the power of real connection and engagement.
And what's truly powerful here is how simple the underlying principle actually is. Basically, the more senses, emotions, and personal connections you involve when you encounter a word, the faster and more reliably your brain will remember it and make it available for you to use.
Okay.
Like if I say the word elephant, you don't just hear the sound. You likely picture the animal, right? Maybe imagine its size, the texture of its skin, perhaps the sound it makes.
Yeah, definitely. A whole picture comes up.
Exactly. That rich sensory experience is the start of true memory. Now, compare that to just reading elephant, a large gray mammal. One creates a vivid mental event. The other is just data.
And the one that fires up multiple parts of your brain is clearly going to win the memory game.
Absolutely.
And this really hammers home the idea that vocabulary without context is just weak. Knowing a word in isolation, it's like having a tool but not knowing what it's for or even how to hold it properly.
Spot on. Context isn't just a definition. It's, a full sentence, maybe a short story, a visual scene, a personal memory, or even an emotion. The sources give an example. Just learning the word journey is okay, But learning it in a sentence like, last year I took a long journey through the mountains and it completely changed my perspective. Well, that gives your brain a picture, a feeling, a setting.
A whole story.
Yeah, even a sense of transformation. Your brain suddenly has multiple hooks to grab onto.
So it's not just learning journey, it's learning took a long journey changed my life. You're learning chunks of language, how words work together and connecting them to meaning beyond just the dictionary. It sounds like that's much closer to how native speakers pick up language naturally.
It really is. It sort of bypasses that analytical step that often slows learners down. And speaking of what to learn, the sources raise a crucial point that I think many learners miss. The words you focus on matter, especially initially.
Ah, you mean like focusing on really complex or formal words too early? Is that it?
Precisely that. Trying to master words like ubiquitous or cacophony when you still maybe struggle to use common verbs like go, get, make, or do naturally in just everyday conversation. The sources remind us that a surprisingly high percentage, sometimes they cite 80%, or even 90% of spoken English, uses a relatively small core vocabulary of simple high-frequency words.
So mastering all the different ways you can get something, get a coffee, get ready, get tired, get it, that's actually far more valuable in the long run than knowing a fancy word like procure.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Fluent natural speaking is built on that solid foundation of these core words and phrases used in countless different contexts. Trying to sound smart with academic words before you're comfortable with the basics is often counterproductive. It doesn't really build active vocabulary effectively.
Okay, this is making a lot of sense. So the problem is how we approach learning. The brain needs context and connection, and we should prioritize mastering those core high-frequency words in lots of different ways. Now, how do we actually do this? The sources lay out, I think it was 5 key techniques for accelerating vocabulary learning and making it stick.
Right. These are the practical applications of those principles we've been talking about. And the first technique is foundational, really, and we've already kind of hinted at it. Always learn and use phrases, not just single words in isolation.
Got it. So instead of just the noun book, you'd learn read a book, open the book, return the book to the library, like that.
Exactly like that. Your brain stores meaning and structure together naturally. So when you learn borrow a book from the library, you're not just learning 3 individual words, you're learning a concept, a common action, the correct preposition, and the typical word order, all as one single unit.
Oh, okay.
It makes the language instantly more usable.
That makes total sense. It's like getting a pre-assembled building block instead of just a handful of individual Legos. Much easier to build with.
Mm-hmm. And technique number 2 builds directly on that sticky word idea. Actively create emotional associations.
Yeah.
Don't just keep the word purely academic.
Right. So if I learn the word thrilled, I shouldn't just write down the definition.
Yeah. Don't just write thrilled, very happy or excited. Think of a time you actually felt thrilled. Maybe I was absolutely thrilled when I saw the concert tickets. Or even I felt a little thrilled talking about this topic today. Write down your sentence. Say it out loud. Maybe even with a bit of exaggeration.
Oh, okay.
Let your brain connect the word to a real physical or emotional feeling.
I love that. Make it deeply personal.
Sure.
Okay, technique number 3 is something that sounds simple, but is apparently surprisingly effective. Use the new word in 5 different sentences.
Yes, this is powerful because it forces you to engage with the word actively in multiple contexts. So if you learn confident, don't stop after just one sentence. Challenge yourself a bit. I feel confident speaking about this topic. She looked confident walking onto the stage. It's hard to stay confident when you're facing a difficult challenge.
Okay, yeah.
Practicing every day helps me feel more confident. He spoke with a confident voice. See, Each new sentence kind of twists the word, uses it differently.
Embedding it deeper.
Exactly, embedding it deeper into your active range.
Right. You're essentially having these little mini conversations with the word, exploring its different facets.
Oh.
Okay, technique number 4 is definitely outside the traditional box. Draw the word.
And you absolutely do not need to be an artist. Seriously, stick figures are perfectly fine.
Good.
Your brain has an incredibly powerful visual memory system, often quite separate from the verbal one. So, for stressful, maybe draw a little person with messy hair and some chaotic lines around them. For climb, draw a simple peak and a figure going up. Even a silly, quickly drawn image creates a unique memory hook that's easy for your brain to access later. It's tapping into the same kind of visual techniques that, memory champions use.
That's brilliant because it engages a totally different part of the brain than just writing it down. Okay, and the 5th golden technique.
Teach the word to someone else. This is a real secret weapon, according to the sources.
Teach it.
Yeah. If you can explain a word and how to use it to another person, whether it's a friend, a language partner, or honestly, even just explaining it out loud to yourself or your pet,
Okay.
it forces you to organize your understanding. You have to define it in your own words, provide context, give examples. That process of articulation, it locks the meaning in your brain like almost nothing else.
Wow. Okay, so the 5 techniques are always learn phrases, connect words to your emotions, use words in 5 different sentences, draw the word, and teach the word to someone else. That's a fantastic toolkit. But how do you make this consistent? The sources then talk about turning these techniques into a simple daily habit, right?
Exactly. Motivation can get you started, sure, but only routine builds lasting skill. And the good news is, you don't need huge blocks of time. The sources suggest a focused 15 minutes a day. That's it.
15 minutes.
Yeah, but that adds up to over 90 hours of focused practice in a year. Imagine the progress from that.
Okay, 15 minutes sounds totally manageable. What does this routine actually look like?
It's broken down pretty logically. The first 3 minutes, review old words. Don't only focus on new things. Open your notebook or your app. Look at maybe 5-10 words you've learned recently. Say them aloud. Read the phrases. Try to recall your personal examples or those little drawings. This just reactivates those memory pathways and keeps words from fading away.
Like watering the plants you've already planted. Makes sense. Then minutes 4 to 7, learn 2-3 new words.
Right. And importantly, try to get these words from English you're actually encountering in your life. That podcast you just heard, maybe an article you read, a conversation you had.
Real world stuff.
Yeah. Write down the word, the phrase or sentence where you found it. Create that personal connection or sentence using it. Maybe a quick drawing. So for confused, maybe I felt confused by the last point in the meeting with a quick sketch of a puzzled face. Keep it quick and personal.
Got it. Minutes 8-11, use the words. This is where that 5-sentence technique comes in, right? But integrating the words you just reviewed and learned.
Yes, exactly. Take today's new words and maybe a couple you just reviewed. Spend these few minutes actively creating those 5 different sentences for each word. Say them aloud. Try changing who is doing the action or when it happened. This is the active rehearsal phase. Really working the words.
Okay. Minutes 12-14, speak or teach. Put those words into spoken practice.
This is crucial for activating your speaking vocabulary. Say your new sentences aloud. Explain the new words to an imaginary friend or a real person if you have one handy. Or just record yourself talking about your day and deliberately try to use the new words. Just a couple of minutes of actively producing the words aloud pushes them from just recognition to ready to use.
And that final minute 15, quick reflection.
Yeah, just pause. Briefly think about which words you reviewed and learned today. How did you feel about the process? Okay, I reviewed excited and disappointed. I learned confused and clarified. I used them in sentences. I feel like I'm making progress.
Okay.
This simple mental check-in helps consolidate the learning and builds that sense of accomplishment.
That structure is so clear and manageable. Review, learn, use writing, speak, teaching, saying aloud, reflect.
Yeah.
Very neat. And they even mentioned something about a weekly super boost.
Right. Once a week, maybe dedicate slightly more time, like maybe 20, 30 minutes, to a theme day. Pick a topic, maybe food, travel, technology, feelings, whatever interests you find, 5, 10 related words or phrases you want to learn or practice, and then create a short story or description using all of them.
Oh, cool.
Speak it aloud, maybe record it. It's a fun way to connect words thematically and practice telling a coherent narrative, which is a great skill.
This whole routine really embodies that shift from just passively writing things down to actively, truly engaging with the language. It's about consistent, smart work rather than just putting in hours with inefficient methods.
Absolutely. It's method, habit, and emotion all working together. But, even with great techniques and routines, forgetting still happens. It's natural. So the sources then dive into specific, powerful memory techniques designed to make those sticky words stick even better.
Ah, the memory hacks. Okay, I like the sound of that. What's the first one they highlight?
It circles back to the emotion anchor, but explicitly for deep memory. Our brains are just wired to remember emotionally charged events vividly. Think of your strongest memories. They're usually tied to intense feelings, right?
Definitely. Unlike what I had for breakfast last Thursday, which is completely gone.
Yeah, exactly. So when learning a word, deliberately connected to a strong emotion you have personally experienced or can vividly imagine. For devastated, don't just learn the definition. Picture a time you felt truly heartbroken or deeply disappointed, and mentally link the word devastated to that intense feeling.
Okay.
Even a slightly exaggerated emotional connection makes the word stand out to your brain as something important to keep.
To make the emotion real and intense in your mind. Got it. Step 2 is visual memory. See the word in action.
Right. Your brain processes images incredibly fast and stores them differently than words. So create a vivid mental picture for the word. And the sources suggest making it memorable by making it slightly weird or exaggerated or funny.
Weird. Okay.
Yeah. For soar, maybe picture a giant rubber chicken soaring through the sky on tiny little wings. It's absurd, sure, but your brain will latch onto that bizarre image and connect it to the word soar. This is a technique straight from memory experts.
Huh. A giant rubber chicken soaring. Okay, I won't forget that image. That definitely links back to the drawing technique, but this is doing it all mentally. Step 3 is the keyword association method. What's that?
This is a classic mnemonic technique. Find a new English word and think of a word or maybe a short phrase in English or even your native language that sounds similar. Then you create a silly or memorable image or sentence connecting that sound-alike word to the meaning of the new word.
Okay, example.
The source example is for grateful. It sounds a bit like grateful.
Right.
So the image or mental sentence is, I feel grateful because my stomach is grateful of food. It's a simple bridge that links the sound of the new word grateful to its meaning, feeling thankful. You got a memorable, often humorous image or idea, grateful stomach.
Ah, I see. It takes a second to set up, perhaps, but that connection could save you hours of forgetting and relearning later. Clever. Step 4 is essential for maintenance. Spaced repetition.
Mm-hmm. Even sticky words need occasional refreshing. Spaced repetition is basically reviewing information at increasing intervals, timed just before you're likely to forget it. It's incredibly efficient for moving information from short-term to long-term memory. Many popular vocabulary apps like Anki or Memrise are built on this very principle.
Right, they handle the scheduling for you.
Exactly. They automatically show you words when your memory is most ready to solidify them.
It's like strategically reminding your brain just enough to keep the memory strong without wasting time. Okay. Step 5. Learn words in chunks, not alone. Again, they really emphasize this.
They do, because it's also a powerful memory aid. When you learn, make a mistake, correct a mistake, learn from a mistake, you're creating multiple interconnected memory points for the word mistake.
Right.
This network of associations makes the word itself easier to recall. When you hear making O, your brain already has mistake
Yep.
ready as a likely candidate to follow.
It primes the pump.
Exactly. And step 6, maybe the most powerful memory technique of all.
Cool.
Using the word in the real world. This is the ultimate test and the ultimate memory booster. When you use a new word successfully in a real conversation, a text message, an email, or even just thinking in English to yourself, your brain basically pegs it as genuinely useful and moves it to a higher priority memory storage.
Ah, okay. Practical use proves its value.
Yes. The sources suggest challenging yourself.
Hmm.
Try to use a new word or phrase 3 times within 24 hours of learning it. Just find opportunities.
Okay, so the core memory formula from these sources seems to be anchor it with emotion, visualize it, especially in a weird way, associate it with a sound-alike word, strategically repeat it with spaced review, connect it in chunks, and most importantly, use it in the real world.
That's it. It's about hacking your brain's natural systems rather than fighting against them with that old dull rote memorization.
Right. Knowing the words and remembering them is fantastic, but the ultimate goal for most learners, I imagine, is using them quickly and automatically when speaking. The sources have a whole set of techniques specifically for activating that passive vocabulary, don't they? Getting it out.
Yes, this is the final bridge. You recognize it, you remember it. Now can you produce it fluently? These techniques are all about building that automaticity, that speed of recall.
Okay, first up, shadowing. What is that exactly?
Shadowing is essentially repeating audio or video right as you hear it, almost like an echo. You find a short clip, maybe just 30 seconds or a minute from a show, a podcast, a speech. You play it and try to repeat everything the speaker says, matching their rhythm, their speed, even their intonation as closely as possible. Feels really awkward at first, definitely.
I bet.
But it trains your mouth and brain to produce English sounds and phrases more automatically and builds your speaking reflex.
And they recommend recording yourself doing this, even if it's maybe a bit painful to listen back.
Oh yeah, that self-feedback is invaluable. It helps you notice where you stumble, where your pronunciation is off, which phrases feel unnatural coming out of your mouth. Technique 2 is creating sentences again, but with the explicit focus on speaking them aloud. Write or mentally create, say, 3 to 5 sentences for a new word, then say them out loud multiple times.
So, for frustrated, I felt frustrated with the difficult exercise. He looked frustrated with the slow internet. Are you frustrated by this lesson? Say those sentences out loud, repeatedly.
Yes, saying them aloud is the activation trigger. It tells your brain, hey, this word is not just for reading, it's for speaking. It bridges that gap. Technique number 3 is called the speaking loop.
This sounds intense.
It is a bit intense, but really effective for building speed.
Yep.
You choose about 10 words or phrases you've been working on recently, set a timer for 1 minute.
Okay.
Then you just speak, trying to use as many of those target words and phrases as possible in that minute. Don't worry too much about perfect grammar or making complete sense. Just keep talking and using the vocabulary.
Wow.
It trains your brain to access words quickly under a little bit of pressure. Do this daily, and you'll start to notice words popping out more easily in real conversations.
It's like a vocabulary sprint. Okay. Step 4, inner conversations.
This is probably the most flexible technique. Just talk to yourself in your head while you're walking down the street or out loud when you're alone at home. Narrate your actions. Describe what you see around you. Okay, I'm making some tea now. I need to boil the water. Where's the kettle? And deliberately try to incorporate new vocabulary you're learning. It's free, constant practice that turns passive knowledge into active thought patterns in English.
It might look a bit weird if someone catches you, but hey, it's effective. Step 5, recycling old words. Don't forget the old stuff.
Exactly. Don't let them gather dust. Set aside a little time, maybe weekly or monthly, to revisit older vocabulary you learned but maybe you haven't used in a while. Pick 5-10 old words and try to write or Even better, speak a short paragraph or story using them. This keeps your active vocabulary from shrinking over time.
Good point. Step 6. Write before you speak. This sounds helpful for people who freeze up.
It really can be. If you find yourself freezing up when you try to speak spontaneously, try this. Choose a topic or a few new words you want to use. First, write down a few sentences or maybe just bullet points you want to say.
Okay.
Then use those notes to speak about the topic. After that, try doing it again without looking at the notes. It helps bridge the gap between the organized thoughts you have when writing and the more spontaneous demands of speaking.
Yeah, sort of eases you into it. And finally, step 7. Practice with purpose.
Right. Don't just speak aimlessly, especially when you're consciously trying to improve. Set little micro goals for yourself. Like, okay, today I will describe my morning using 3 past tense verbs and at least 1 new adjective I learned. Or, tonight I will try to ask 2 questions using modal verbs like could or should.
Or I'll try to use the word fascinating at least once today.
Exactly. That kind of targeted practice ensures you're actively working on specific areas and deliberately using the words you want to make active.
Okay, so the activation toolkit is shadowing, speaking sentences aloud, the speaking loop sprint, inner conversations, recycling old words, writing before speaking, and setting purposeful practice goals. Wow, that's a lot of ways to make words jump from your brain to your mouth.
They're all different angles on the same fundamental idea.
Yeah.
You absolutely have to practice using the words if you want them to be available for use when you need them. Simple as that, really.
Now, all of these techniques and routines are clearly powerful, but the sources also remind us that perhaps the most natural and maybe ultimately the most effective way to build truly usable vocabulary is by simply learning from the world around you. Just paying attention.
Absolutely. Vocabulary learning isn't some task that's confined to a classroom or a textbook. Every single moment can be a learning opportunity if you frame it that way. The sources really encourage consciously observing your environment and simply asking yourself, what is this called in English? Or how do I describe this action I'm doing?
Like narrating your everyday actions as you do them. I'm closing the door, I'm washing my hands, the coffee is brewing, that kind of thing.
Exactly that. You're connecting English words directly to your concrete lived experience right in the moment. Those connections are incredibly strong for memory. Step 2, they mention. Use technology as your language assistant.
Right, like changing your phone language to English or using voice assistants like Siri or Alexa in English.
Exactly. Search for things online in English, follow English speakers on social media, play word games on your phone. These small shifts integrate English into the fabric of your day.
Makes it normal.
Yeah, presenting words and phrases in real functional contexts without you even really trying too hard.
Step 3. Watch and listen naturally, but with active observation.
Yeah, and the key here is not feeling pressured to understand every single word in a movie or a song or a podcast. That's overwhelming. Just focus on noticing things. What's a word or phrase that seems to keep coming up? Can you guess its meaning from the situation, from the context? Maybe jot down just 1-3 interesting phrases you hear per session.
Mm-hmm.
This is how native speakers learn new slang or technical terms, just by encountering them repeatedly in context and figuring them out.
It's about curiosity and observation, not necessarily translation all the time. Okay. Step 4. Keep a simple vocabulary diary, just like 3 sentences a day.
Yeah, a small physical notebook or even just a note on your phone works fine. At the end of the day, take 2 minutes to write down 1 new word or phrase you encountered. Then write a very simple definition in your own words, not the dictionaries, and finally 1 sentence using it that relates somehow to your day.
Takes 2 minutes.
Barely. But it personalizes the word immediately and creates a lasting record tied directly to your life.
Step 5. Create personal word connections, which sounds similar to the emotional anchor we talked about earlier.
It is similar, but broader. Link new words not just to strong emotion, but to specific memories, people, or places in your life. So if you learn the word exhausted, think of a specific time you felt truly exhausted, like maybe after hiking all day last Saturday, I was completely exhausted. Connecting the word to a specific personal event makes it far more memorable than just a generic definition.
Right. Gives it a specific location in your mental map. Step 6. Use your world as flashcards.
This is so simple but really effective. Put sticky notes with English labels on objects around your house. Chair, window, refrigerator handle.
Uh-huh.
Name objects out loud in English when you see or use them. Maybe use those translator apps that have image recognition. Your entire physical environment literally becomes a learning tool.
Immersive learning at home. And finally, step 7. Speak about your day in English.
Yes. At the end of the day, just spend a few minutes telling the story of what happened using English. Start simply, then gradually try to add more details, feelings, and maybe some of the new words you learned or noticed throughout the day.
Mm-hmm.
Even if it's just describing going to the store and back, it builds fluency, it activates your vocabulary, and it develops your ability to tell stories in English, which is a huge part of communication.
Wow. Okay, so bringing it all together, it seems the fundamental shift here is moving away from that old school, dry memorization approach.
Definitely. Building vocabulary effectively really isn't about drills. It's about engaging with words in multisensory ways, connecting them to your emotions, to context, to your personal experiences,
Yeah.
and then actively using them consistently in your real world. It's a shift from passive input to active engagement.
So vocabulary learning isn't just something you do with your head down in a book. It's actually happening all around you all the time if you just tune in and actively participate.
Exactly. And it's important to remember, fluency isn't about knowing every single word in the dictionary. That's impossible and unnecessary. It's really about being able to use the words you already know, especially that core high-frequency set we talked about, with confidence, speed, and flexibility in real conversations and writing. That's usable fluency.
That's a really powerful point to end on. So that leaves us with a final thought for you, the listener, to take away from this deep dive. Thinking about all these techniques and routines we've discussed, what is one small, consistent habit that you will commit to trying, starting today, to make your English vocabulary truly active?